Amen. Let's do it. Yay. Church is God's amazing gift to us. We are so blessed in one another, in this beautiful place where we meet, and in what we do together here. God fills our souls, sanctifies us, no joke, changes us from the inside out. What else in all the world matches that moment when Glenda plays the opening chords of the first hymn and we all stand up to sing, when the words of the hymn are so full of hope and aspiration that you almost can't afford to pay too much attention to them because crying makes it awfully hard to sing. Friends, let's stand together. There aren't very many of us. Where is everybody? We got to sing twice as loud. Let us worship God. Our hymn is on the insert to your bulletin. Is it called Let Us Build a House or All Are Welcome? It's got to now, All Are Welcome. We're going to sing that one. We're going to omit verse 3. Great builder, fulfill your vision in us. Let this house proclaim from floor to rafter that you are here with love and forgiveness and compassion, healing and comfort and purpose. Clear away anything that contradicts that message. Nurse us through hesitancy to believe. Let your grace flow. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's be seated. Welcome to all of you, and welcome back to our choir. Hooray! Wonderful to see you. We've had an amazing summer of great soloists. DG, thank you. You've introduced us to some new friends and new musical experiences. It was really fun. Great to see the choir back, though. Nothing like hearing you sing. DG would love to welcome some new members, so if anybody feels inspired, Thursday night, 7:30, they'll be here. And welcome also to Dale Rominger, my smart, handsome, and long-suffering husband. Dale is a retired minister. Those of you who have been around here for a while know that he is an extraordinary preacher. He's preached here several times, a couple of those times at very short notice when I was sick. And once he got a round of applause from this congregation. That's never happened to me. No complaints, just saying. My retirement means that door closes for Dale as well. So a couple months back, I asked him if he would like one more chance to preach for all of you. And luckily for us, he said yes. So hooray for Dale, who is our guest preacher this morning. And part of the reason for that also is that I've been away gallivanting these last couple of days. This has been a great lifesaver for me. The gallivanting was a trip to the Olympic Peninsula, courtesy of an invitation from Greg and Cheryl to visit them at their yurt on the Elwha. So yesterday at this time, we were sitting down by the river watching the salmon spawning. You see the salmon spawning? They were as close as kind of here to there, and it was a great drama they played out for us. Day before that, Dale and I were pulling up to Sammy Greenwood's house and meeting young Simon, very bouncy dog, and Bill, her husband. I've had many conversations with Sammy, lots of emails back and forth, but it was the first time I'd ever met her in person. She lives in Squim. So we had a wonderful walk with her and Simon at Squim Bay Point. Wonderful day. So thanks to Cheryl and Greg for the inspiration and the invitation, which a group of us enjoyed. Our church council meets on Tuesday evening this week, 7 p.m. That will be on Zoom. The papers will come out this afternoon. And that's the last announcement I have until Saturday, October the 1st, 2 weekends away, when, are you fixing to stand up there, Eric? I was wondering if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, two things to say. Yes, Saturday afternoon, the dinner portion of that will start at 4 o'clock, but we will start a hike at 2 o'clock. There's beautiful hikes. There's a lower loop down by the lakes, and there's an upper loop that goes up to Echo Peak. Both of those, neither of those are super hard, but if you want to do the one up to Echo Peak, bring some decent shoes, okay? The other one is just a beautiful hike down by the lakes. And there's a pickleball court and a basketball court. So pickleball, if you've played it before, is a lot of fun. Other than Jenny was like beating me the other night and I tripped and really hurt my leg bad. Too much competition. But anyway, so if you want to do that, come at 2 o'clock. I will send out this week detailed directions there. It's pretty easy. It's just right off of 169, very close to, as you head towards Maple Valley, the bottom part of Renton. It's only about a mile off 169 there, okay? The other announcement is you all got an email this week about a specific thing that deals with Roberta. I'm not going to say what that is, but if you'd like to see me after the service, I will be in the back of the church here. Okay? Thank you.
October 2nd, my final Sunday, is also World Communion Sunday. And by tradition, that's the day that we receive one of the United Church of Christ's 4 special offerings, the one called Neighbors in Need. 1/3 of the money supports churches on the reservations. There are 20 UCC congregations on reservations in North and South Dakota, Wisconsin, and northern Nebraska. And there is also an urban multi-tribal UCC church in Minneapolis. So a third of the money goes to support them. The rest of the money funds the justice ministries of the United Church of Christ. That's advocacy on our behalf. It's resources that we use in our own church. It's grants that they give to congregations with vision of things they want to do in their local areas. This year, the theme that they're highlighting is wage theft. So more about that next Sunday, wage theft and how churches are taking action. Those are my announcements. Anybody else? Let's greet one another. May the peace of Christ be with us all. As you see from your bulletin, Dale's sermon comes in two halves this morning. The first concerns God's call to justice, and I read the familiar words of the prophet Micah from chapter 6. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000s of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? God has told you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God.
Good morning. Am I on? Good morning. You can hear me? Yeah. Good morning to you all. It's great to see you. Good morning to everybody on Zoom. Roberta and I are going to have a discussion when we get home about her introduction to me. A bit much, I thought, but we'll go with what we got. A month or so ago, she said, this is probably your last chance that anybody's going to ever want to listen to you talk. And maybe you could reflect on your ministry a bit. Now, I know that sounds terribly boring to reflect on my ministry, but I'm asking you to hang in there with me. I think it's going to be okay. But before I start formally, I want to say thanks to this congregation, to all you here and all of you on Zoom. When we came here over 7.5 years ago, I had never actually been a real member of a church. My dad was a minister. I was a minister. I'm married to a minister. I'm the minister's spouse in this congregation. But you guys treated me like one of the guys, or as close as it could be to be one of the guys. I have to confess, and it was a thrill. It was great for me, but I have to confess that the first few weeks, as I'm thinking, they're going to treat me like one of the guys, but I got a little nervous, a little anxious, because for a moment I thought you might shower upon me the same admiration and respect you do for Peggy and Dal, who are also retired ministers. But no, that wasn't a problem. There's nothing to worry about at all. And just to make sure that I was humble, you put me in charge of a committee whose responsibilities in the church were in areas that I had no experience and no expertise. But we did okay. But it is a genuine thanks for letting me be one of the guys in the church. So I'll now begin. One of the things I'm most proud of in my ministry is I was hated by a lot of people. And when I say I'm proud, I know the pride thing is a slippery slope, but I'm going to stick with that I'm proud about that. When I say hated, you need to trust me. They did not like me. And they said things to me that we could not say in this building right now. When I say a lot, I never counted them, but they sure felt like a lot. And the point is this: what would my ministry have been if not one gay bigot, sexist idiot, oppressor, xenophobe, if not one of them had been offended by my ministry? That would have been terrible. And when I say offended, I mean offended. Now, when we're talking about fighting for justice, the point of fighting for justice is not to offend people. That's not the purpose. But if you want to fight for justice, you will, by definition, offend somebody. If you want to fight for the liberation of somebody, you're going to offend the oppressor. There's no way of getting around that. And I've always said, if you're not willing to offend, that's not the purpose, but if you're not willing to do it, then don't get in the fight. You're just getting in the way. But as I was thinking about this, Roberta asked me to think about my ministry. I started wondering, so where does this desire for justice come from? So in me, where does that come from? And I know as soon as I say that, some of you are probably already starting to answer the question in your own mind where it comes from, and I want you to stop. Just hold on for a while, okay? The summer after I graduated from college, and that's a long time ago, I went and lived, I can't remember where it was, but a place outside of Chicago. And I went there because the woman I was crazy about had gone home to her parents who lived just outside of Chicago. And I was going to be there for a while, so I got a job in a factory. And in this factory, I'm working on the factory floor. All the workers, I'm sure all the workers were Hispanic. And certainly when we went into the canteen for break or lunch, everybody was Hispanic. As it turned out, the section I was working in, I was working with a guy, a Hispanic guy, who was my age. And we started becoming good friends. Well, buddies anyway. Very different lives, but we really clicked together. Actually, when we went into the canteen, and all these guys, they're they'd be speaking in Spanish, of course, and somebody would say something to somebody, and then they would look at me and they would all laugh. And so I would just drink my coffee. It didn't seem mean, but they would laugh. And so my new friend, we went out after work, and he taught me to say really, really horrible things in Spanish. I mean, really bad words. And so the next day we went in, and somebody said something. They all looked at me and laughed. And he went, and I said with real gusto these words, and the whole room was silent, and then a burst of laughter, and I was in. I was the white guy that was in. And to this day, I still can say really terrible things in Spanish. But here's the thing, the reason I bring this up. This guy and I can't remember his name, but we one day after work in his car went to a bar. We were going to get a beer and sit and talk. Went to the bar, and it was a working man's bar. And we got in there, and it was about 5 or 6 guys sitting at a table talking and drinking a beer, and a big guy behind the bar. And we walked up to the bar, and I said, we could have 2 beers, please. And the guy said to me, you can have a beer, but he can't. And in my naivete, and remember I was young, just out of college, in my naivete, in my privileged life, I didn't get it. I didn't hear it really. I said, no, we just want 2 beers. And he said, I can serve you, but I cannot serve him. And as soon as he said that, and I looked at my friend, I finally got it, what was going on. I just looked at him, I said, go to hell. And then my friend and I got out of that bar, into the car, and away as fast as we could. But the question is, where did the go to hell come from? I had not read Bob Brown's Theology in a New Key. I had not read Gutierrez on Job. I had certainly not read John Rawls on justice. I had not read all these books that I would eventually read that formed a foundation for my ethical understanding of what it is to be human, what it is to be in relationship, what it is to be with God, all those things. I had not done any of that, so where did the go to hell come from? And I suspect you're starting now to tell me, you want to tell me where it came from, and I want you not to tell me. So listen to this. When I was in graduate school in anthropology in Missoula, Montana, University of Montana, I was a roommate with a guy, and we had a house, and the house was on the corner. And it was one of these houses with a small porch. And so one day we were sitting out on the porch drinking a beer, and all of a sudden, on the other side of the house, around the corner, we heard a big crash. I mean, it sounded terrible. And my beer was down, I was off the porch, I was running as fast as I could, and as soon as I turned the corner, what I saw was a car in flames. And I'm running towards this car in flames, and in my head I'm thinking, if somebody's still in the car, they're in trouble. And then I thought, if somebody's still in the car, I'm in trouble. What I didn't think as I ran towards the burning car, I didn't contemplate the nature of goodness. I didn't ask myself if this was a good and noble thing to do or just a stupid thing to do. I didn't wonder what prima facie duties might apply in this situation. Promise keeping, no, that wouldn't apply, but maybe avoiding harm and doing good would apply. I didn't debate with myself whether utilitarianism or situation ethics is more appropriate as I'm running towards the car. And trust me, I had no Bible verses in my head about when I was running towards the car. All I did was run towards the car. And so I ask again, where did the go to hell and the running toward the car come from? And now you can tell me. And I'm willing to bet that you're going to say something like, where did it come from? Where did Dale get this? You're going to say, well, my parents, my school, perhaps my community, my church, my relationship with God, teachings of Jesus, perhaps. But I'm going to say to you, put it aside. I refuse to embrace those possibilities, which are very easy. And here's the reason I refuse at this moment to do that, And that is because the people who hated me, they were not that different than me. They had parents, they had schools, they had communities, they had churches, they had Jesus, they had God. And if you would ask them, justify the fact that you're calling yourself a Christian, justify that to me, their justification would be very similar to the justification I would give you if you asked me to defend my faith. But these are the people who set the car on fire. And so I refuse to just embrace the easy answer. And the truth is, and which is important in the next section, the truth is, I don't know really where it comes from. But I will say at least this, that maybe running towards the burning car is similar to why we talk about prima facie duties. Truth-telling, promise-keeping, avoiding doing harm, doing good, all those duties. We declare those duties as good in and of themselves, in that they do not need justification. They do not need intellectual or spiritual justification. They are good in and of themselves. And perhaps the best thing I can say is that running towards the burning car is just simply good in and of itself and needs no more justification. But if I say that, then it's important to remember this. I get no red badge of courage. I get no award for nobility. I just get, you do what you do when the car is on fire. Now, I'm going to move on. Roberta's going to get up again. But I want to say three things as I move on. First of all, in case you're curious, there was nobody in the car. He had gotten out. He was lying on the ground. He was pretty beat up, but he was okay. There was nobody in the car. Second thing is, all the years that I've been running towards the burning car, and now you get the metaphor, right? Running towards the burning car. And remember what I said? I said I was worried about being harmed myself. In all the years I've been running towards the car, I have not really been harmed. Some people have hated me, and some people have misunderstood me, and some people have been frustrated by me. I have, and 2 or 3 times, been in situations that I thought were a bit dicey, and perhaps I shouldn't be there, but it turned out that I wasn't harmed. Perhaps bruised a little bit in my life, but my reputation, my job, my life was not severely harmed. So I got away with that in a sense. But I'm white, straight, middle class, educated male. And third, I had come up with a really good transition sentence to take us from justice to preaching. And I'm saying this was a good sentence. It was so good, I didn't have to write it down. I forgot it. I've been looking for it for days. I can't find it. And so Roberta suggested that we just split it in 2, not pretend. And so Roberta, you're up.
I want to read to you from this book, Telling the Truth by Frederick Buechner. It's a book about preaching. The sermon hymn comes to a close with a somewhat unsteady amen, and the organist gestures the choir to sit down. Fresh from breakfast with his wife and children and a quick run-through of the Sunday papers, the preacher climbs the steps to the pulpit with his sermon in his hand. He hikes his black robe up at the knee so he will not trip over it on the way up. His mouth is a little dry. He has cut himself shaving. He feels as if he has swallowed an anchor. If it weren't for the honor of the thing, he would just as soon be somewhere else. In the front pews, the old ladies turn up their hearing aids, and a young lady slips her 6-year-old a lifesaver and a magic marker. A college sophomore home for vacation, who is there because he was dragged there, slumps forward with his chin in his hand. The vice president of a bank, who twice that week has seriously contemplated suicide, places his hymnal in the rack. A pregnant girl feels the life stir inside her. A high school math teacher who for 20 years has managed to keep his homosexuality a secret, for the most part even from himself, creases his order of service down the center with his thumbnail and tucks it under his knee. The preacher pulls the little cord that turns on the lectern light and deals out his note cards like a riverboat gambler. The stakes have never been higher. 2 minutes from now, he may have lost his listeners completely to their own thoughts, but at this minute, he has them in the palm of his hand. The silence in the shabby church is deafening because everybody is listening to it. Everybody is listening, including even himself. Everybody knows the kinds of things he has told them before and not told them. But who knows what this time, out of the silence, he will tell them. Let him tell them the truth. Before the gospel is a word, it is silence. It is the silence of their own lives and of his life. It is life with the sound turned off, so that for a moment or two you can experience it not in terms of the words you make it bearable by, but for the unutterable mystery that it is. Let him say, "Be silent and know that I am God, saith the Lord. Be silent and know that even by my silence and absence I am known. Be silent and listen to the stones cry out." The preacher is not brave enough to be literally silent for long, and since it is his calling to speak the truth with love, even if he were brave enough, he would not be silent for long, because we are none of us very good at silence. It says too much. So let him use words, but in addition to using them to explain, expound, exhort, let him use them to evoke, to set us dreaming as well as thinking, to use words as at their most prophetic and truthful the prophets used them, to stir in us memories and longings and intuitions that we starve for without knowing that we starve. Let him use words which do not only try to give answers to the questions that we ask or ought to ask, but which help us to hear the questions that we do not have words for asking, and to hear the silence that those questions rise out of, and the silence that is the answer to those questions. Drawing on nothing fancier than the poetry of his own life, let him use words and images that help make the surface of our lives transparent to the truth that lies deep within them, which is the wordless truth of who we are and who God is, and the gospel of our meeting.
When we lived in the United Kingdom, one of my ministries was the director of the ordination program at Mansfield College at University of Oxford. That just means it was where the United Reformed Church and Congregationalists trained their ministers towards ministry and ordination. Mansfield College had a grand old history. I mean, it was the college for Congregationalism and Protestantism and so on, and it was really great. By the time I was there doing my job, it had lost some of its glory. We had less students, and it just lost some of its glory. But some of the traditions of Mansfield College still held, and on Tuesday mornings, starting at 7:30, staff and students would meet to worship. It was a short worship, a half hour or so, or maybe 40 minutes. And then we would all go to the hall to have breakfast together after the worship. And then after breakfast, the students would meet for their private meeting. But because I was the director of the program, I was given 10 minutes to discuss with them any issues I might have that week. And so that's the routine. It was also quite prestigious, even when I was there, to be invited to preach at this Tuesday morning Mansfield College, University of Oxford service. And one Tuesday morning, we got some bigwig in. I can still see his face. I forget his name, thankfully. And he got up and in the podium, and he started, and what he did is he read a lecture to us. And he did the thing, I don't know, was it in the 50s or the 60s? And I hope nobody here taught this, because I'm going to offend you if I did. But somebody had the idea that when you're talking to a group of people, you look at the back of the room so that you all get the impression that I'm looking at you, but you're looking at the back of the room. So this guy's reading a lecture and then looking at the back of the room. It made me furious. And so we went to breakfast. I was very polite with this guy. We did our thing. Then I met with the students. And they said, do you have any issue? And I said, yes, I have an issue. I said, what just happened? What did he do? And they said, well, he preached a sermon. I said, no, he didn't. What did he do? What was his genre? What did he do? And he said, well, he preached a sermon. I said, no, he didn't. He read a lecture. Don't get me wrong. It was a really good lecture. But reading a lecture is not speaking a sermon. It's not preaching a sermon. A lecture is a written genre. Preaching is a rhetorical genre. And I wasn't saying that they had to do it like me or like Roberta or where are you, Peggy? Peggy, or like you, Peggy, or Dale. Dale's not here. But they had to find their own way of doing it, and they had to learn to do it right. They had to learn to do it good. And I said, if you cannot decipher the difference between reading a lecture and preaching a sermon, then get another job. You all are smart. You're at the University of Oxford. You can get different jobs. We do not need you to help us kill the church. We're doing fine by ourselves. I said to him, you got to want it. You got to understand that preaching's important. You got to understand that somebody might listen to you. And somebody might think something. And somebody might change in some way. Preaching is life and death. Preaching is life and death. And if you don't get that, get another job. You can. Imagine this. Imagine you're on the gurney and you're being wheeled down the hallway in the hospital and you're heading towards the theater for triple bypass surgery. And the nurse on your right says, who's doing the surgery today? And the nurse on the left said, oh, it's Dr. Johnson. And there's a pause and the nurse on the right says, you mean Fumblefingers Johnson? And the nurse on the left says, yeah, Fumblefingers. And the nurse on the right says, well, he is a good guy. He's a nice guy, and it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I said to them, no, it's not going to be okay. And I said, if you don't understand that being okay is not okay, get another job. Do the job. Love it. Preach in spirit and in truth. In spirit, intellectually, creatively, in the heart, but really want to do it. And for heaven's sakes, people, in truth. You tell them the truth, and if you do not know the truth that day, you tell them you do not know the truth, because that is the truth. And when you do that, look them in the eyes. Who is going to listen to you if you don't look them in the eyes? Why would they want to listen to you? They're going to count the bricks on the wall. But if you do look them in the eyes, and you know that good enough is not good enough, then maybe it would work. I tried, and this is going to sound really conceited, but I tried to remember to say every week to myself, Dale, this Sunday, you're going to preach the best sermon of your life. Now, I didn't, but it reminded me that good enough is not good enough if you want to be a preacher or a heart surgeon. My last church was in a place called Newcastle upon Tyne in northern England. And after a service was done, and you know how we chat afterwards and so on, a guy came up to me to thank me for the sermon. Now, I can't remember his name. Roberta can't remember his name. Nice guy. He was early 30s, mid 30s, and he was a politician. He was elected as a liberal Democrat to the city council or the county council. I forget what it was. Is that me doing that? What am I doing? Hitting it? Raise the mic. Okay. I think I'm done. Anyway, a city councilor, something like that, and I know he had greater ambitions. I'm sure he was hoping to be down in London in Parliament one day as a Lib Dem MP and so on. But he came up to me and said, I just wanted to thank you. Really, really good sermon. It was really, really inspiring. And I said, well, thank you. This is my job. And he said, but what's the plan? I looked at him and I said, the plan? What? What do you mean? What's the plan? And he said, I was really inspired, but what's the plan? The plan of action. I looked at him and I said, hey, I get 15, 20 minutes on a Sunday morning. If I go over 20 minutes, there's going to be hell to pay. And so the plan, I did my job. I inspired you. You tell me what the plan is. That's your job. You tell me, and then when you figure it out, do tell me, because now I'm curious what the plan is. This little incident made me think about something. And the something is this, is that understandably and rightfully, you all have expectations on me as the preacher. That's understandable. Of course you do. And if I don't do my job well, you have every right to tell me I don't do my job well. You're paying me to do this. Well, you guys aren't literally, but you get the idea. But we never ask the question, and we shouldn't ask it often because it's not the right question, but we never ask the question, what do I as the preacher want from you? The plan, I guess, but what do I want from you? I was trying to think, how am I going to say this to you? How am I going to explain this to you? And I thought, DG. Not just you, but all you. And everybody on Zoom at home, I'm going to talk to the choir for a minute, and I think that means my back is going to be to you, so apologies, hang in there with me. Nothing in the chat box, please, it'll be fine. You guys do something that I have never done in my life and never will do in my life. You stand up in front of people and sing. Now, I do want to pause for a moment before I get to my main point. I do want to pause for a moment because Eric's sitting back there. When we first came to this church, Eric was the music director. And one Sunday, I came up to him and said, boy, the choir was really great today. You do a really good job. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And he said, well, this is a church choir. If you want, you could join the choir. And I went, yeah, I could do that. I could sing. And he said, the only thing I want from you is that we do 2 or 3 or 4 voice lessons. I went, well, that's fair. He wants to get my range, my singing voice. And so at that time, we lived an hour, 1 mile from each other. And so I walked to his house one day, and we went downstairs, and he says, what are you going to sing? I go, I'm going to sing Ode to Joy, Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, right? Okay? And he says, great, and he starts playing, and I start singing, joyful, joyful, blah, 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 like that. I think I got 45 seconds into my rendition of Ode to Joy. The piano stops, and he starts yelling, Dale, stop, stop, stop. I'll give you $1,000 if you don't join the choir. Now, I tell you this true story because I'm preaching, because you do something I can't do. I can't do it. You stand up and you sing in front of people. And I started thinking, what do you want from us? You must want something, right? What do you want from us? So I'm just thinking, sometimes you must want us to feel happy, to feel joy even. And sometimes, let's be honest, you want us to be sad. And wouldn't it be great with even some tears? No, I'm serious, that kind of emotion. And if we're feeling sometimes, is it possible, I'm asking this question, is it possible that you want us to think something? That the song or the performance might have us thinking something? And imagine, is it possible that you want us to change in some way, given the nature of the song or the performance? And if we did feel and think and change, and this is a stretch, but would you want us to go out into the world and do something? Now that may be too much. But imagine this, imagine next week somebody comes up to you and they say, your singing was so great, and I was feeling such emotion, and it got me thinking. And it changed something in me. And then this week I went out and did. Would that be something if that happened? Well, I started wondering, it helped me focus my thoughts on what I, as the preacher, want from you. And I realized it's really simple. It's very simple. It's not a lot. All I ever wanted, was to change your lives. And for you to go out and change the world. That's it. That's why I did this all these years. Simple. I ask you to forgive me for my hubris that one would want to do that, but it was my job. They told me that was my job. It's important. We were taught somewhere along the way to hope that we could one day achieve, to reach the impossible possibility that I could speak, you could change, and the world could change. That's all. So, Roberta, I'm done. I hope I didn't go over time. Okay? But I do want to say one last time, to all of you, and all of you on Zoom, thank you. So thank you for letting me be a part of this congregation. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you. Wait, except for Eric, who crushed my dream of being a singer.
It's time to listen to the choir, isn't it? I was getting up for prayer requests, but it's not time for that.
Open my eyes to see.
Our closing hymn is Lord of All Hopefulness. You'll find it on that insert in your bulletin. Let's stand and sing together. It is all grace, the preaching and the listening, the call to justice and the courage to respond. Look for God in the inspiration and the urgency. Step into God's family, into that kingdom whose name is welcome and whose law is love. May grace and peace and joy be yours today and tomorrow and through all the years that we have. Amen. Somebody put on the Zoom, hey, it looks like we outnumber the folks in the church this morning. I don't actually think that's true. Let's come show them that we're all here. We can wave to the camera, even though we can't see their faces on the TV. Let me close the chat. You can see them on the left. There they are. Yeah, here we all are. And there they are on the laptop, if you want to look over to your right. There they are, waving back. Yeah. Special refreshments today. They're looking yummy from here. Let's enjoy.